Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Soul Meets Heart, podcast for your soul. My guest today has spent over 50 years walking a spiritual path, 20 of those years inside an ashram, which I'm going to ask you about because I have no idea what that is, where he raised his own children. He's been a children's book publisher, a Vedic astrologer who studies the ancient yugas, an Enneagram teacher since 1999, and he calls himself, only half jokingly, the wise old fool. He just released a book called Indra's Net and reimagines all 78 archetypes of the tarot as a map for the human experience. Excited to really dive into that as well. Please welcome everyone, Indra Rinsler.
Thank you, Hugo, for having me on the podcast today. I'm really happy to connect and see what magic will appear.
Yeah, definitely.
What
Me too.
form magic will take. How about I put it that way?
There you go. So actually, I wanted to say, first off, thank you for all the work that you do. Having a person to light up the path for others, I count you as a light worker, as a person who is lighting those people's paths. So having that light in your journey is really nice to have. So thank you, Indra, for everything that you're doing. Let's see when he rejoins. Oh, there he is. Okay.
But I'm back, so it looks like it's still recording.
Yeah. We're still live. All good. Oh, good. So I was just thanking you for everything that you do. Indra, we have actually two traditions. Well, actually, we have multiple traditions here at the podcast. But one of the things that I love to do is we actually have the previous guest prepare a message that they want delivered to you. And they had no idea who it's going to be for or when it was going to be read out loud. But the message, hopefully it lands for you. But if it doesn't, hopefully it lands for someone who's listening. But the message that they left for you was, keep taking action and keep going. You will find what you're looking for. You just have to keep pushing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem, man. I'm going to be asking. Yeah, I'm going to be asking you for a message at the end, but that was the message they left for you. Our second tradition that we have here is we actually begin our podcast with a quick little meditation. So if you don't mind, we're going to it's super easy. All we're going to do is we're going to take a big deep breath in. We're going to inhale love, 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 love. And then we're going to exhale gratitude. Thank you. And thank you, Indra, for doing that with me. And that meditation is super simple, basic, but it helps us get grounded for the conversation ahead. So thank you for doing that.
Okay, thank you.
So what is an ashram?
What is an ashram?
Yeah.
You've heard of a monastery?
Yes.
That's an ashram in India.
Oh, okay. And I read that you raised children inside an ashram for about 20 years. Can you maybe tell me, what did you have to unlearn about parenting once you left that container? And what do you think your kids had to unlearn about the world?
Well, the kids were born there. Before we went, the founder of the community or the ashram, my first child was 6 months old. And he told us a piece of advice. He never had any kids, but he had a piece of advice. And the piece of advice was to never tell them no.
And why was that?
Well, he didn't want to take away their sense of creativity, that there are ways to say no, but not to use the word no.
Okay.
And again, I don't want to put words in his mouth. This was 75 something. So what is that? 50 years ago. But I think the idea is that the no breaks the spirit, breaks the creativity, that you want to, like it's better to, you have kids of your own?
I do. I have a 15-year-old.
Okay, so it's better to distract a kid, like I'm talking about a young kid, rather than say, no, there's danger over there. It's better to kind of distract them so that they don't go over there, rather than put fear into them of, oh my God, I'm doing the wrong thing, or it's the world is dangerous, or such. So I think that's what he was getting. I think that was what he was getting at. Maybe it was directed to us or me. I don't know, but that was something that I heard. The kids unlearn. The community grew to accept kids. well, not accept kids. I mean, there were some children living there, but a monastery, again, an
Mhm.
ashram, doesn't have any really have any kids in it. And so it's a vibration that isn't there. And so we kind of learned how to be in that spiritual work, together. And I don't know that they had to unlearn anything. The kids, while they left kind of when they graduated, high school or were ready for high school. So they were all the way through it. And I think that there was an attraction for the world, but while you would say that my kids are worldly, they also have this other vibration that they grew up in, that of spirituality. So they tend to be a little bit deeper, and they're not worldly in the sense of incredibly material, though all have had success. It's not based on trying to achieve the worldly success. I don't think they have that particularly in them. There was a the part of there was a schools that started there. There's a book called Education for Life. They call it Living Wisdom schools now. And so there was a way to broach spirituality for kids in an expansive way of opening them up to creativity and self-expression and self-esteem in a way without making it churchy or spirituality, meaning that there's a depth, but not in a way to that there's a right way and a wrong way. That it's more proactive than it is trying to limit people and the kids in particular. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what I would say.
It answers the question I didn't know I had it to ask, but it actually
Okay.
did answer something for me.
Okay.
Before you did life readings, you, I think, published some children's books about nature.
Yes.
Did you see a thread between do you see a thread between teaching a child to notice the natural world and teaching an adult to notice their inner one?
Well, now that's an interesting question. I kind of have a philosophy that it's all the same. That this has nothing to do with your. It's a side on your question, but in the book that I'm working on, I sort of start with, well, what are your goals? And it's like, if your goals are to to not to be happy, or your goals are enlightenment, which are seem extremes. I'm trying to say something, your goals are to, to support yourself. Ultimately, there's a way, if I call it squint your eyes, it's all the same, okay, like you got that. I saw that LA sign. I don't know if that's the Dodgers. I don't see it right now, but I saw it this morning
Yeah.
on it. So like minor league baseball and major league baseball are different, but it's still baseball. It's still fans, it's still pitching. Is
Yes.
this still four bases, and batting average, So I mean, it's kind of the same. When we differentiate things, then we create separation.
Mm. Why do you think we do that?
Well, we do it because we don't really know any better, because the children have been told no. I'll give you a full circle there, because the children have been told no, and they haven't been creative, and so we separate ourselves from our higher selves. And
Yeah.
in doing that, we create a distance. And then in that distance, we create all sorts of illusions that really aren't true.
Yeah.
We're already enlightened. It's just not a very high percentage.
Not a high percentage. This is an interesting perspective. I like that. It reminds me of that when I'm not learning things, I'm remembering them. So,
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So the wise old fool nickname here. The fool in tarot isn't foolish. He's usually the one that's been captured, who hasn't been captured by the story yet. When you call yourself the wise old fool, is that a spiritual position you're claiming, or a warning to yourself against certainty?
I think it's just reality that we can be wise and still foolish. And so it was this is my Instagram handle,
Yeah.
that my wife sometimes thinks I'm kind of foolish, not that she would use that term, but when she's correcting me, lovingly correcting me, it's this wise but a fool. That the idea of the fool is that in my book I reversed the major arcana. I call them the major truths.
Yeah.
Arcana. What do you think arcana means? It means truth. So I thought I would use a word that people could actually understand
Yeah.
rather than the accepted term. But I put them in reverse. So we start with the universe at 21, and we end with the fool. And the idea is ending with the fool. The fool is the. Let me think here. Well, I can't think of it from the book. I can't think of what it is, but it's that life is. Let me look it up. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah. No
we're
worries.
on
No.
recording. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Totally fine.
Let me
We
see where I
are
can
very
do this.
flexible.
Let's see. How do I find here? Let's go to the life is counterintuitive, the fool.
Okay. Okay.
That sometimes you have to go north in order to go south.
Mm.
Sometimes you have to slow down in order to, you have to, you go to sleep and then you can't figure out the math problem. And then you go to sleep and in the morning, the answer comes right away without even thinking. And sometimes you need to slow down in order to speed up. Sometimes you need rest in order to have energy and do things. So life is counterintuitive. And when you realize that life is counterintuitive, then life may call you the fool, but that is like the Jack and the Beanstalk. The mother said, "You foolish boy, you sold the cow for beans," and she threw out the beans, and then it grew into a fortune at the top. So this became the fool. That it wasn't the plan to do it in reverse. It just appeared, and there was. I like to say that solutions are already there waiting for the problem.
Yeah. It's
There was, when I realized that I wanted to do it backward, the major arcana, the major truths, then the things that I didn't understand that I had already accepted, I understood.
okay. That makes sense. People like myself, probably like yourself as well. I don't know, maybe when we're on this spiritual path, right? We tend to be on this path for a long time, right? And I think you've said before that people can develop some sort of blind spot, in a stage where we mistake something for the destination. Have you caught yourself in that stage, and what did it look like in the inside?
Well, I don't, I think the only solution, excuse me, the only path is the spiritual path. And I think the differentiation isn't between being on the path and not being on the path.
Mm,
There's knowing you're on the path and not knowing you're on the path. But in either case, you're on the path. And so I think the way that I look at it is more that I thought I was the doer. I thought that it was from me. And I come to find out that it's through me, and by ignoring, Indra is my, that's a personality of the body, but I don't, the accomplishments are not from me, they're through me, and the more that if I hold on to me uh,
mm,
in any form, then that's when we get slapped around. When we have no expectations, they're all
yeah.
met.
So when you say things are happening through you, by you, is that
From me.
from you? So does that mean you don't take credit for any of the work you do? It's all just
No,
oh,
no, it's not. There's nothing to take credit for. It's all divinity. It's
interesting.
about letting go of the credit and letting go of self and letting go of responsibility and letting go of, again, expectations, and being open to what's happening rather than limiting ourselves. We go back to, maybe this is, this is the man was had incredible wisdom and ended up writing, I don't know, 100 books or whatever.
Yeah.
But maybe he was talking to me and not about the kid. Don't say no.
Yeah.
Don't say no to yourself.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, because then it's never ending. We're all just here for each other. Where if spirit is working through us, then really no one's doing anything for others or for themselves. They're really doing it for everyone. Like, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's the peace position. Otherwise, there'll always be tension and conflicts.
Yeah, interesting. So you study the yugas,
Yes, the yugas.
the gray ages in Hindu cosmology. Without
Yes.
without getting theoretical, what does that framework tell you about this specific moment, 2026?
Okay, so there are four yugas. It's the ages in Greece. In Greek history, they call it the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, and the Iron Age. In India, it's the same four yugas, or it's the same idea. The idea here is that most of the world thinks that we're still in a Kali Yuga. This is the lowest age, and Kali Yuga is a phrase that has almost become mainstream in the sense of it's a very dense age. But the teachings that I follow believe that we're not in Kali Yuga anymore. We've already entered Dwapara Yuga. This is the second age, and that it's the age of energy. And so you have internet, we're talking by internet. This is a Dwapara Yuga, an energy idea that the connection of everything. Flying is Dwapara Yuga. I like to say that Henry VIII didn't say to one of his wives, why don't we bring the doctors down to the village and have 2 free health clinic days a week for the people down there because they're hurting. He didn't say it because it wasn't an age where universal health care, is a common theme and something that people are looking for. This is a higher age vibration, a higher age idea, and so that's the age that we're in, and it gives us it makes sense of what's happening in the world,
Yeah.
and it gives us more optimism because you can see the changes that are going on.
So you use astrology and enneagrams as a combined instrument. What can birth charts tell you that an enneagram type can't, and vice versa?
So what does astrology tell you that Enneagram doesn't?
Yes.
Okay. So I think of Enneagram, which are the 9 personality types. Well, let me back up. So astrology I consider to be the like the track coach, that it's the elbows and knees, it's like let's get a second off, let's get a tenth of a second off. It's very moon is this, Jupiter is that, Venus is this, it's this time, it's this. It's very specific. It's small focused on little things. It's very detail oriented.
Yeah.
Enneagram is like the fan in the stands watching the whole race. That it has a larger view. That Enneagram gives you these 9 stories, personality stories. It gives you your core triggers, and astrology can kind of hint at the triggers, but the Enneagram gives you, in a couple of sentences, you can get a really clear idea. But anything that you say in astrology, like even if everybody wants to generalize whatever, Pisces rising, and
Sure.
it may be that Pisces rising every Pisces rising has some aspects that have in common, but to generalize off of Pisces rising about that the individual is only this way is incredibly limited. But Enneagram gives us this larger view that is a much more holistic view. Now, there are some types of personality that you say that, that if I say that always late, well, that may or may not be one particular type, but there are many things that 2s are serviceful. You have a heart, you're very hard. It's in your name. You give me a 2 energy, that you have a service background, and there's a whole story with the Enneagram 2, the helper, that the helping that the helping is compulsive, because there's a feeling that if I don't help people, then I'm not worthy. And I mean, it's really at your core. But if I say you're Pisces rising, and so you have trouble deciding, it's not really it may be at your core, but it's not, it doesn't hit really the same way. It's informational, but not really in the same way.
Mm. Do they ever contradict each other?
Oh, you've got some good questions here. Did they ever contradict each other? I
Like an
would say
enneagram?
in the hands of malpractice, they contradict each other, but I don't think ultimately they contradict each other.
If they did, which one would win? It sounds like the Enneagram might be more
I
detailed or
think to the Enneagram people, the Enneagram wins, and to the astrologers, the astrology wins.
mm.
Yeah, what I get the image right now. Carlos Santana can play guitar, but if I pick it up, it's still a guitar, but I'm not going to play like that.
It's a good example. Good example.
Okay, so it has to be in the hands. The surgery. We can all. I do surgery on a splinter. But I'm not ready to go into the emergency room and help them out because I took a splinter out. So it's all perspective and goals and such.
Yeah. So you built Indra's net around all 78 tarot cards, but explicitly you mentioned that you're not using their traditional meanings, just their energetic frequency. Now, talk to me a little bit about building up the confidence to take on an ancient codified system and rewriting what each card means.
Well, it's very easy because I was given it, and the book took 8 years. When I was starting it, it sort of reminded me that they were kind of what I was writing, kind of had this tarot card symbol, but it was 4 years later than that. Then it became clear that that's what they really were, and that's what I should present, that I should format the book that way. That when I had 85 themes,
Yeah.
and I had envisioned 40 in a book, and maybe I had two books, and I tried to put them in an order, and it didn't really make much sense. I didn't really go too far into it. That was at the very beginning. I didn't really go too far into it. But by the time that I had 85, and the book came around again through some circumstance with a friend of mine, the tarot came back, and I said, yes, that's what it's about. And I found out that in 85 or 90 themes that I had one for each of the 78 tarot cards. And when I put them together, it was about 85% of them never changed. In other words, it was pretty easy. I had a theme called the universe that was for the universe card, but some
Yeah.
of them weren't so obvious. But when I put them together, about 85% of them stayed the same, and I changed maybe 10 or 12 of them, moved them around, and some of them that were out of the book a few that were out of the book came into the book, but I didn't really come up with anything new. A few of them weren't written, they were just titles.
Yeah.
But, it just became clear that, and I want to say that I think the question, your brilliant question would be, well, how can you trust that? How do you know? And the answer is that I trust it because it came, and I don't have to interpret it and figure it out. By then, I had completely let go of that. The one that got me here
Yeah.
was the one that was running it. And so I
Mm.
was very happy to just follow along with whatever that one wanted.
Why do you think some of us struggle to follow along with messages that are coming in the way you so easily did?
Experience.
Mm.
Had another teacher. I said, "Well, how do you know that?" He said, "Experience." And so when you fall down enough, you pick yourself up. You learn to pick yourself up. You
That's
try
right.
again and you pick yourself up. It's just that there comes a time, I like to sometimes I say, well, how did you know to marry? How did you know to have a kid? You knew because you didn't know any other way. You knew because you had broken up in enough relationships, and it just felt like it was the time, whether it was a plan or not. People would say, were your kids planned by you? Were your kids planned? And I said, yes, but not by us, because we didn't know.
Yeah, well, that's my situation. My kid was not planned by me,
Yeah. But
but I will say, since I had my son super young and he's now 15, 37, we're going to, I mean, we've already done this. We've grown up together in a way that's very unique. And I see all my friends my age now having their kids, and I don't envy their like lack of sleep or any of that stuff. Like my son is, now doing chores, taking care of his own stuff, and yeah, it's just I'm on a much easier path than they are.
so I think the thing that's really important here is that you get egotistical, you don't listen to the truth, and your mom says he's not the right guy, or she's not the right girl, or whatever. I'm just making a hypothetical here, and
Yeah.
after a while, I used to talk about that at 12 the parents get really stupid, and at about 21 they get really smart again, and what's happened in between, what's happened in between is that the kid learns that life isn't as easy as they thought, and they needed to reject the parents' ideas, and they need to come back to it, whether it's 21 at 35 or 53 or 82. It doesn't really matter. Whenever, there's no time limit. This divinity is forever, and it really doesn't, is no limitation, but there's only the enough experiences in order to be able to get really frustrated that you're not listening to your gut, and you're not listening to the higher self, and you realize, whatever it is, you realize that you reject people's ideas, and you eventually learn is coming from an ego, from a need to be somebody, and then you eventually get to a place that I don't need to be anybody.
I don't want to be anybody.
Yeah, I don't want to be anybody. Yes, yes, and that we aren't anybody, and the wanting to is letting go of the stories, letting go of the expectations, letting go of our own thinking, our own conditioned ideas.
Yeah. So like a bird in the winter, you would go to India
Right.
in your winters. You spent every winter in India, I think, from 1998 until the pandemic, is what I saw. Uh,
Yeah.
What did that annual return actually do for you spiritually that staying home couldn't?
Well, I'm still going, by the way.
Oh, you're still going. Amazing.
Still
Okay,
going.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I took
nice.
3 years off. Well, I met my wife there. That's one thing. My current wife. Well, I mean, ultimately, you can learn it at home, but the thing is that you do need to. You do. I mean, again, all these things. You don't need to have the relationships in order to realize who the one is. There's people that meet somebody in elementary school and they're still together. I mean, they didn't need to go to India, but I think we need to go to India because we've got a hard. Because the skull is thick, and that we need to get out of our own environment in order to expand. But in India, I ended up. You might have read. I started a business. I was importer for 12 years.
Mm,
And I ended up, well, I met a man in India and he was importing, and I knew about 80% of the business already, but he taught me the 20% I didn't know. And I sold his stuff the first year. And then I went back overseas. I've been to 56 countries, and I bought in, I think it was 22 countries. This stopped almost 15 years ago,
oh
but
wow.
I did it for 12 years, and it was wonderful. And it gave me a chance to see the world and experience many countries through their marketplace, which
Yeah.
was a good, I thought that was a good way to, and it was a good way to support myself and come back, and met a lot of people. At the top, we had 200 stores we were selling to. I was selling wholesale.
Mm, that's cool. What a life you've lived.
Yes, I feel very blessed.
So, part of your work is, you call it a life reading rather than
Right.
a psychic reading or fortune telling. What's the distinction you're drawing, and why does that language matter to you?
Boy, you got these really good questions. I think I call it a life reading because I bring three different modalities into it. So I can't call it an astrology reading because it isn't just astrology. And it's a
Mm,
life reading. The Enneagram gives us our core triggers.
yeah.
The astrology gives us our strengths and weaknesses. Those are the differences between, another part of the differences between
Mm,
them. And the third modality is, I call the wheel of totality. It was a modality that Spirit gave me, that in an astrology reading we talk about where the houses that have planets. We're only basically talking about the planets, and so we're talking about the houses that have the planets. But for most people, I mean, generally you have 6 full and 6 empty houses. Some people are 7 and 5, and some people are 5 and 7, and occasionally you might have a 4 and an 8, or an 8 and a 4.
Mm.
But so half of them are empty, and we don't talk about those. So that is the wheel of totality. It talks about that each house contains awareness, but if you don't have a planet there, then the awareness that's in that house is a blind spot. It's a place of ignorance. It's a deficiency. And it isn't until 50 that we start working on our deficiencies, because in 20s and 30s, we're mostly interested in ego and identity and becoming, knowing who we are. We're not interested in what we don't. We're interested in doing more of what we do.
Yeah.
And so the wheel of totality gives us the awarenesses that we're deficient in, that we start coming into, becoming more aware of at 50. But still, if it's an empty house and based on your natal chart, it's always a little bit more blind than the ones than the awarenesses where we have planets, because those are our skills and abilities. So the combination gives us ourselves in 3 different perspectives, and that I call a life reading.
Wow. Okay. So that's quite a lot in what you do. I know you also work with clients on needing to know versus not needing to know. When do you tell someone the why behind their pattern? And when do you deliberately withhold it?
Well, I don't remember saying any of this, but I think that I don't think the whys are particularly important. I don't think it really matters. I mean, it matters to the ego, but it doesn't matter to the soul. I don't think it matters ultimately.
Okay.
And so, you know, I hold back when people don't really understand.
Mm,
You know, like you can tell your 15-year-old what it's like to be a 37-year-old, but they're never going to hear any of it.
yeah. Well, I mean, although to him, I'm probably 100.
Yeah, well,
To
yeah,
him,
there you go. But I mean, it's hard enough getting him to convince that what he needs to know is a 15-year-old. But
yeah.
that's that's the work. But I don't hold back so much, because most of it comes through me, not from me. And so if it's my ego, then I need to say it.
Uh,
But if it's awareness coming through me, then it's something that I need to say for whether I know it or not. That's for them, because I believe it's their higher self. I had this experience years ago that I had a young client who said that who was very hurt by a relationship. She was 21 years old, and she looked up at me and she said, "I trusted once and got hurt."
mm,
And I was trying to connect with her. She was very emotionally based, not emotional, but emotionally based. And she knew her feelings and sensitivity, but I couldn't get any of it from her because her heart was closed. Okay.
uh,
And so I started saying to her, I was trying to say to her, you know, giving her example for her. And I tried to put it into parental terms, because she wasn't understanding any of it because her heart was closed.
mm,
Okay. So then I experienced that all of a sudden the broadcast signal started, and I could see, I could feel, I could hear, in a sense, not necessarily in my ears. I could feel her getting it. And seconds later, maybe not seconds, but in like the mind is very slow. The hand is quicker, the reaction,
sure.
like there's a car coming at you and the body does somebody saying move your body, but the body doesn't move because it's a whole in microseconds. It's a long time.
Yeah.
Microseconds later, then she started crying. But when her heart broke open, I could already feel her broadcasting. And then later, in microseconds, she
Yeah.
started crying. And I realized that it's a broadcast. And
Mm,
so if all of a sudden I get the idea that something happened in your childhood, it's from you. It's not from me. That something in them is broadcasting to me
yeah.
that there's something from your childhood. That this pattern is deep enough that it's not just adultness we're talking about. I call it what's the phrase I use? Well, we're still we're childlike. We're adult, but still childlike. We're 7 going on 38. And when that 7-year-old, when you're dealing with stuff that people can't quite get, you're
Yeah,
really dealing with the 7-year-old.
I can
And
see that.
and not that you have to talk to them like a 7-year-old, but you have to get them to understand that it's that deep, that they're only going, they're staying shallow, and that's why they can't get it, that they have to go deeper.
That story was an interesting one. Is there a client story? Maybe it's already this person, but is there a client story that changed you? A reading that you gave someone that changed you more than it changed them?
Well, I think that's all of them. I think that I've learned that you teach what you need to learn.
Interesting.
I had a in the Enneagram, I'm a 7, and there's a line in the reading, and I get a lot of 7s. And so like the 100th time I went through this line, the line is the biggest fear, and the fear is, if let's see if I can remember it, is the fear of deprivation, the fear of pain. And the 100th monkey, the 100th 7, read that the fear of deprivation, and I understood it in a way I never understood it before. So they all teach, something another example that comes to mind is that when you begin, like afterwards, you think, oh, I should have told somebody. I should have told them. It just came clear. I take a walk afterwards, and it's like I should have told them that I didn't think of it at the time. So at first, of course, you think, oh, I did bad. What a da 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 da, da, da. But then I learned to just tell the next person
Hmm.
that I figure that there's a universality, that that the person will hear, if the person needs to hear it, if I tell the next person, that it'll get back to them. And so sometimes I'll start with that. I mean, if they bring up something similar, I'll say, the last person had that same thing, so let me tell you what I wish I had realized to tell them. And so, the thing is, we never stop learning, we never stop growing. I mean, that's the idea, is that they all break my heart open.
Yeah, I like that. I like that you keep it and you use it for the next, and it's a good way to look at it. If a skeptic booked a life reading with you purely to disprove it, what would be some things that you'd want them to walk away having noticed, and even if they never believe in astrology in itself?
Well, I begin the reading by saying the reading is essence to essence. And I haven't had anybody say, "What the hell are you talking about, guy?" And so I believe that the clients are sent, that they feel the energy, they see my picture, or they feel the energy. If you go to a psychic fair, you don't read. The people who read the material, they're not the ones that get the reading. It's the one that just looks across the room and says, I want to get a reading from that guy. What do you do?
True.
Right?
So
Isn't that the
super
way
true.
you are, Hugo?
Super true. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So,
a vibe. The vibe you
yes.
get for sure.
So, that's, I think that's the way that it is. And so the astrology, I don't care whether they get it or not. I don't care whether they believe me or not, because it's not me. It's through me. And so you plant seeds, and I've had clients that 3, 6 years later come back to me and say, you were right. But, did I have a problem that they didn't think I was right before? No.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. Okay. Now, there's something I wanted to ask you about Gaia, or
Okay.
or is it Gaia? Gaia?
Gaia, Earth.
Gaia, Earth herself. Is there anything? What does Gaia need from us as a species that's addicted to distraction? In your view,
Say that again. What does Gaia
so
need?
what does the Earth herself need from a species that's this addicted to distraction?
Well, off the top of my, you got these great questions. I don't know that Gaia needs anything. I guess Gaia needs our love. Needs our appreciation, and maybe Gaia needs us to not be distracted. But this is a plane. This is a teaching plane. This is a classroom.
Mm.
And so the earth just is, I think I think the fact is that nature is us. It is not, why do we feel so good in nature? Because it's us, and it reminds us that that's who we are. And so there isn't really any different, that it's a physical plane manifestation of the divinity, and it expresses itself in beauty, but the ugly is just as beautiful.
Okay. I like that. The ugly is just as beautiful. I'm gonna write that one down. You currently have a book that you wrote. It's called Indra's Net. You put this book out somewhat formatted imperfectly rather than waiting for it to be pristine. Was that a philosophical choice, or was that just you releasing the seeker's guide?
Well, I'm not sure. Pristine. Well, I was a book publisher for 10 years, and
Okay.
there's always second editions and changes.
Yeah, yes.
I think, songs change, Dylan doesn't do a song anything like he does on the album.
Mm,
So, I don't know that it wasn't pristine as it was. It was an expression as it was. But I think there became a place of that it was just time to get it out. That there was a time that, like maybe, Hugo, you go into perfectionism, but you have to learn that there's a time, there's a season, the birds, there's a time for this and a time for that, and the time is that there's a time to get it out, that it's a time that it's as perfect as it needs to be, and that it's only the ego that wants it to be more perfect.
yeah, I'm definitely on that perfectionist route
Yeah.
where I'm looking for perfectionism in everything I do, and I feel like nothing creative is ever finished for me because I always find ways that I could have improved it and could have done better, could have asked this, could have done that. Yeah.
Well, again, when I was 37, I didn't know much of this either, but 25 years in India and traveling the world, and my wonderful wife, and here, even the thickest skull can get wisdom will fit in, the wise old fool, that the thing. I had a client who was a perfectionist. He was a photographer, and he had a very difficult fifth house, which
Hmm.
is the creativity. And I said, he needed the picture to be the world's best picture, or he couldn't push the shutter.
Yeah.
And that isn't really helpful.
No.
I mean, can it just be the best picture that of this moment? Can it be the best picture you can do right now?
Yeah.
I think, I would say that there's, while your nature is to be perfectionistic, there's some parental thing going on. I'm feeling that, like people say that the parent, that you needed to be perfect for the parent, that they wanted to be perfect. And there's an old story here, Hugo, in this, that will, when you let go of that, then you can't complete your tasks until you let go of that,
Mm,
because then you can accept it. It's the best that I did, rather than the best that can be done.
I like that. I like that framing, and I need to hone that in. Thank you for that.
Is there something to that?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, growing up, just a story about myself, I guess. I have two younger brothers. I'm one of three boys. We each went our own different paths, raised in the same home, but I did not go to college or get a degree or any of that. I was definitely the black sheep of my family. My parents were both very educated, and my brothers both graduated from a really good school, like both of them. So, the expectations were really high for me from the get go, and I never lived up to them. And I feel like that's what touched on what you said, like, oh, I do put myself, or I beat myself up, I guess, in that sense where I was expected to also be a scholar and have this like college degree, and even now at 37, my baby brother, who just turned 24, he got his master's and he graduated. And one of the comments that my parents made was, you still have time to go to college and get a degree yourself. And I'm just kind of like that's what you get from all this. Like they're right. I still have time, but also there's no interest in school for me. It was just never my path. So yes, there that was what came to mind when you were talking about it.
Okay, but I taking it a pressure. I'm not talking about you, but in general,
Oh,
it.
sure.
But when general, what happens is that you know you're 5 years old, and there's this expectation that I need to have my tie straight, or that I need to do well in school, or that I need to keep my room clean, and there's a sense of perfection. And I had this story. You might like this story that I had a client that said that her mother said that the daughter had, who was my client, the daughter, that the
Hmm.
daughter had a fat ass. And she said that at 19, she went to Brazil and she found out that her ass wasn't so fat. And that I said to her that the mother was actually talking to the client, but in general, the mother is talking about her own fat ass, but the parents use the child's name, but they're actually talking about themselves.
Mm.
And so the lack of perfectionism in using you as an example, but not talking to you, but that it's in your grandparents, it's in your parents not living up to your grandparents' expectations that puts the pressure that you're a 5 year old or 7 years old or 3 years old, that you feel that you have to, that one feels, not you, one feels that they need to, that they've got these expectations. And so the perfectionism, you have to let go of that whole perfectionism that's been passed down generation to generation. And that's when you can accept your creative endeavors for what they are, and accept the book as it is, and not worry about that I could have done better.
Yeah, it's
If
beautiful,
I
man.
could have done better, I would have done better. This is what I say to people. There is no right or wrong. There is no good or bad. If I could have done better, I would have done better. To
Yeah,
accept life as it is, without the expectations, without the infringement.
I love that. I love that a lot. You teach classes and you also do one-on-one readings. Which one has changed your thinking more over the years, standing in front of a room or sitting across from just one person?
Well, more is hard to say. I mean, the standing in front of the room is a whole, public speaking is maybe larger because that's a big deal. But I mean, I'm a late bloomer, you know. The book, I may not look that old, but in next week I'm going to turn 80, and these were lessons late in life, that the reason that I could be so forgiving was that I wasn't ready to do this until that it wasn't given to me, any of this, until I let go of my own need for it to be doing it. That I needed to get clarity in my own self and let go. That's what spirit expected of me.
Can I ask you a question about the unglamorous parts of being this wise old fool maybe? People come to you wanting wisdom. Is there a version of you, impatient, bored, cynical, maybe that clients never get to see because it wouldn't fit your role?
Well, I'm not so much those anymore. There certainly was maybe at the beginning, but not so much anymore.
Mm,
I'm kind of a what you see is what you get.
yeah.
There are
No.
people that are what you see, what you get, and then there are people that you never really know. That's why the astrology and the Enneagram are so helpful, because they don't know. I can reflect themselves back to them.
Mm,
But
it's a good point. Yeah.
yeah, I can. I mean, as soon as I go to say impatience, that it just doesn't feel right in the body.
Mm,
And so I reject it. It's as soon as I'm aware of it, as soon as I can feel it, and it happens rather quickly anymore because it's rather unusual.
mm. Is there a spiritual cliche that you're personally tired of hearing?
I think I'm free. I
Um,
think that the 30-year-old's freedom isn't very free. That there's a stage of being shy and not, and not expressing, and then you say I'm free. I can do what I want. But that's not freedom. Freedom is not having to do what you want. It's a middle stage.
mm, I like that. You've also lived through the pre-internet spiritual scene. and now the current one. It's kind of oversaturated with content, a lot of self-proclaimed gurus. What's gotten what's actually gotten worse about how people approach spirituality, not just different?
I wouldn't say that anything has gotten worse because it's just a stage. It's
Mm,
just a maturity, again, your 15-year-old is going to make mistakes, but that's how he learns.
yeah,
He's gonna get crazy drunk one time, and you're gonna have to pick him up off the ground. But that's a learning lesson. So we all do that. So it's become mainstream, and God bless it. I had a friend of mine in India. His son is a pretty well known teacher, and the father told me that he had 87 people for a month long, and they were from 43 different countries. That's what the world is right now. So I can't find any bad in any of that. Has it gone to extremes? Am I getting tired of getting AI emails? Yeah, but I mean, that's just the personality. If I have that reaction, that's not divinity. That's Indra. That's Indra being small.
that's fair. You mentioned, excuse me, you mentioned, things being different when you're looking back, being younger. Was there something about awakening that you believed at 30 that you no longer believe at your age now?
I'm sure there is. Well, of course, we didn't talk about awakening so
No,
much back
we
then.
didn't.
So I mean that's easy, but I had a teacher in India, a European guy, that a Swami that lives in India, and he said that what people call awakening is actually pre-awakening, and there's a 15 or 20-year cycle of then awakening. And they use the example of this man named Ramana Maharshi that
Hmm.
was, okay, you've heard of him, that he had a near-death experience as a teenager, and he woke up and became his realized his true self. But then he meditated in a cave for 19 years, and all of these people that you know I had an awakening experience. Now I know, they don't really know. Now they think they know. And it's more of an eye roll than it is a disgust or a blame. It's just kind of an
Yeah.
eye roll. It's what I call kind of the 30s.
Okay.
35 is the height of arrogance. And arrogance is that the thinking that I know and you don't know. And this is the stage we go through. We have to go through this stage. We
Yeah.
we need the arrogance, because if we don't have any arrogance, we need a little starch in our spine. Otherwise, we wouldn't stay in the body.
Mm,
So we need a little bit of this arrogance, but we don't need to project it onto everybody. And that is, I call that 30s. And it's okay. We've all been there. We've all been, fools, before we thought we were wise. We thought we were wise, but we were fools.
uh, so, couple last questions I have for you. You spent decades moving between Vedic, Buddhist, Taoist, and Christian mythical frameworks. Is there a concept in one tradition that you've never found a good English word for? Something that only makes sense in its original language?
Well, there's a word in India called bhav, and it means a kind of a vibration, a bhav of a room, the thing, and it doesn't translate particularly well. But I would say more than a word, the whole that I like to say that in India, there's only one rule in India. The one rule is that there are no rules.
Mm,
And that doesn't translate particularly well. And I like to say that in America, India makes no sense. But when you're in India, the West makes no sense. And
yeah,
so you're when you're in the, like how people pick up language when they're in the language. What do they call that? Immersion, when you're
yeah.
immersed in India, it makes sense. And the problem is that the way I thought of it when I first went there in 1986 is there's a gap. In India, you've got this, you expanded consciousness, and then you come back into the West, not to pick on the West, but you go back to the small consciousness, and you need to learn to bridge that gap, because you're
Mm,
you're in this like a psychedelic, you're in that experience of expanded consciousness, and then you get back to your regular life, and then where did it go? It all left. And so I tell people when I do the reading, I do them in my room in India, and I say, until you pass the threshold, the threshold of the door, when you go over, the bubble is going to disappear, and the work is to come back to it on your own. That the reading vibration will give people clarity, but the clarity will leave.
Mm,
And the work is to come back to that on your own, to do the work to fill in the gaps in order
yeah,
to be able to live at that vibration, that frequency.
interesting. You if someone could only take one of those practices from your 50 years of study, not a belief, but an actual practice, what would you hand them?
Love yourself.
That one is tough because I don't feel enough people know what to do or how to love themselves.
Okay, so the teaching, the closest I have to a teaching, a philosophy, is something that was given to me in 10 minutes. But it took me
Okay.
a long time to understand it, but 10 minutes. The four doorways to conscious living. The first doorway is that we need to learn to observe. We need to watch our own thinking and behavior. We need to watch our reaction to other people's thinking and behavior. We need to watch our reaction to situations. We need to watch our reactions to other people's reactions to situations. We need to get out of the movie of our life into the audience to have an objectivity about what's happening in us, our own attitude, and we learn by just observing. We want to let go of all opinions, just observe. So then the second doorway is to let go and release what doesn't serve. Letting go involves being aware of a feeling, letting it come up, staying with it, and letting it run its course without wanting to make it different or do anything about it. It means simply to let the feeling be there and to focus on letting out the energy behind it. When letting
Mm,
go, ignore all thoughts. The third doorway is to love ourselves, and the fourth doorway is to live in the moment. So if we live in the moment, we love ourselves. How do we love ourselves? Here's the answer to your question, is by letting go and releasing what doesn't serve us. Now, if ice cream serves you, keep eating ice cream. But whatever it is that isn't serving you now, perhaps perfectionism or such intense perfectionism, what are you trying to make perfect? This question comes to me from spirit. What is it that you're really trying to make perfect? Because it is not the song, most likely. So how do we know what to let go and release? By learning to observe, life will tell us.
I love that. Definitely got me in my own thoughts, Indra. Thank you. Thank you so much for just being here and answering my questions. Where can people find you? Where can people reach out to you? Where can they buy your book? All that information. Yeah, where can we find you, Indra?
So I have a website, indrarinsler.com. It's all one word. On Facebook, Indra Rinsler. Google that. Put that into Facebook. Those are the best. You can read about the readings. You connect with me at indrarinsler@gmail.com. I like to offer people 2 free readings. That would be not 2 free offers.
Too free
That
off.
is your Vedic astrology chart.
Okay.
It's not a reading, but I will make a few comments. But you can see your Vedic astrology chart, and you'll be able to read it a little bit with what I give you. Not understand it, but at least understand it because it's a little bit of a different shape.
Mm.
And I can send you an Enneagram test. That's about 5 or 10 minutes to figure out your Enneagram point. So write me at indrarinsler@gmail.com. And I will send you those. I need for the birth. I need date, time, and place of your birth for the astrology chart. The book is on Amazon. Indra's Net, A Secret's Guide to the Human Experience. And I want to say that Indra's Net is a 2,000-year-old concept. It's a Buddhist and Vedic concept. That's
Mm.
the interconnectedness of all life. That the Indra was the king of the gods. It's a spiritual name given to me almost 30 years ago. That Indra's Net had jewels hanging at all the crossing places. They're faceted jewels, and they reflect every other jewel and reflect everything. And the concept is the interconnectedness of all of life. And so the tarot readings are whole within themselves.
Yeah.
that you don't need the 78. If you go deep enough with one, it'll get you there. But all of them are related to the entire truth. They are not the entire truth, but they are a semblance of the entire truth. It's enough to last for a while. Each one has a picture, it has a caption that is related and makes you think, and then there's the theme, which is 500 to 1,000 words long, and then there's some exercises at the end, and
Mm.
think about it, next steps, higher octave, affirmation. Each one is whole unto itself, and some of the people write me, they spend a while reading the book. It's too dense. It's not a lot of words, but if you really go into it, it's kind of dense and takes a while. There's always more. Whatever level you read it at, and it'll accept any level. You can just read it as a short stories,
Yeah.
fiction,
Okay.
but they're based on my life experiences. They're ancient Indian teachings. There's client stories. Some of the stories I sold today are part of are talked about in the book, and yeah, get it on Amazon.
Okay. Awesome. I'll make sure I include links when the episode releases. But Indra, I do have one last game to play.
Okay,
I
of
I
course.
I used to be a rapper and I used to rap songs and sing and do a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm not gonna make you rap unless you want to, but we're gonna do a soul freestyle. So basically, I'm gonna draw a word and you're gonna just freestyle whatever comes from your heart, whatever you want to tie to that word. Okay?
Okay, I hadn't heard this one before.
So whenever you hear the word, you just come up with whatever comes from your soul. The word you drew is tenderness.
It's a great word: tenderness, generosity, sweetness, compatibility. Life purpose comes. Not that I believe in life purpose, but that is what comes. Animals, nature, gentle breeze.
Really nice things. All of it. Everything you said just brought a visual to my head every time you said something. Either a memory or a good visual. So thank you for that. And thank you for participating, Indra. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your time and being here and answering all my questions, even though some of them were out there. I really do
Beautiful,
appreciate it.
beautiful questions. I love it. I love people that. I love it when people actually study. Know me a little bit, and I'll call it challenge me.
Yeah. Yeah. We try to come up with unique questions when we can on the show. But thank you once again for being here. And for everybody out there listening, don't lose faith, lose fear, peace, and let your heart be light. We'll see you all in the next time.